There's a special docuseries, like limited docuseries, whatever they call them, special.
Yeah.
You know what they call them.
Yeah.
On Netflix called Unnatural Selection.
Right. You were telling me a little bit about this.
Yeah, and it's about like gene biohacking and like gene therapy and like the CRISPR-9 technology and like
they're already up to 9?
I don't know if they were up to CRISPR 5, 6, 7, or 8 before that, but I think that's just what this one's called.
Get ready.
So, and it's basically about how we broke the code of the human genome and how we can read and write and edit DNA at this point, and what is acceptable, what is a good idea, what is a bad idea, what is unacceptable, what should we be allowed to do without any government interaction, and all these sorts of things.
Like what?
Well, for example, they've in the documentary they followed kind of like four solid storylines. There was a storyline about a scientist that worked for, I don't know, like Harvard or like one of the big universities that was backing him and stuff like that, and also the fucking DARPA was funding him. So like fucking DARPA, dude. DARPA was funding him, and he was like working for universities and stuff like that, and he was doing scientific research on how he could eradicate the tick problem on Martha's Vineyard, I think, somewhere out there on the East Coast.
Right. Okay.
And it's like a secluded little island of its own, and it's got a lot of ticks. So he was gonna try this experiment there to see if this thing worked. And what it was trying to do is he found a way to go into these mice that were prone to getting the ticks but surviving or something like that, and like injecting the ticks with the disease or like with whatever immunity that the mice had, so that when the ticks breeded they wouldn't be poisonous or something like that, or like they wouldn't lay eggs. He tried this both in Martha's Vineyard and somewhere else in the world where in New Zealand, where they have a lot of rats. And the idea with the rats, I can tell you for sure, was they would like just not populate. So he like figured out a way that they would breed without breeding, like they would just die off. Like, so that's a controversy. Like there's like a gene therapy that would basically kill off a species.
Yeah.
It's like an extinction pill or something like that, whatever you'd want to call it.
Yeah, like self-extinction.
Right. So like if we can figure that out, and if we can implement it on an animal, who's to say somebody couldn't accidentally inject that into a human and it spreads to humans, right? So that's something that should we be allowed to be doing that? Should the government intervene in that? And then like the more positive side, we followed a little boy with he was born without like strong vision, and like they didn't know what was wrong with him, and they're like, maybe he's autistic, but it turned out he just like could barely see. So
oh my god.
So there was some sort of gene therapy that they produced that allowed, that it was like you have to like remove or like take off the lens of your eyelid and like put some drops in, but basically it heals your eye. And like when we first saw this kid in the documentary, he couldn't see. Yeah. And by the time we finished with his storyline in the documentary, he was driving like go-karts without glasses on.
Oh my god. That just gave me chills.
Because he wants to be the first person on Mars, and like he was crushed when he found out that astronauts need 20/20 vision. Oh, and he couldn't see.
Like Gattaca.
Yeah, exactly. It was like Gattaca, and the scientists in this documentary compared this situation to Gattaca.
So Gattaca's happened already, basically.
We are living in Gattaca at this point. Dude. And that's kind of what this documentary is how do we deal with that?
Dude, how do we deal with that though? That's crazy stuff. Like that's insane.
It was 4 1-hour-long episodes, and I watched them all in one sitting. That's like I wasn't even sure I was gonna watch a half-hour show.
Where was that at?
It was Netflix.
I'm gonna check that out.
Unnatural Selection.
Unnatural Selection.
And I was just like completely fascinated by it.
That sounds sweet.
Yeah, it was really cool.
I love thinking about that stuff, man. Are you trying to live forever if gene editing gets good like that? Are you trying to live forever?
In the documentary, they say that they've already cracked how they can do it with mice. So I think we'll have that option if we can afford it.
What does that mean, though? I mean, like, I just wonder what kinds of stuff will open up as a result of that. like how will behaviors of animals be changed over evolution as we start to edit our own genes? Will we even be able to figure out or measure how evolution changes with humanity as we're editing our own genes, or do we have ultimate control over that now?
It's interesting that as soon as we can figure out how to live forever, it's going to be the same time that we figure out we can live completely in a machine and what we look like doesn't matter.
Nanotechnology.
That's right. So it's like we're going to figure out all this science all at the same time, and it's like, who's going to win? Can we live forever, or do we live in the machine?
So here's my theory for the future.
Let's hear it.
Everyone in the world is going to be living in VR, in a VR pod.
Matrix style.
Before
Neo unplugs.
It's going to be some form of rolling life pod. Brad and I have talked about this before. The idea of a life pod being like an individual container where you can just like traverse across the country once climate change sort of
why do you need to traverse across the country though?
So you can have your independence and you can roam around and do whatever you want to do. You know,
you're like unconscious the whole time.
Yeah, but you have the idea of illusion. Well, maybe you're driving something cool in a VR world and you want to like have the sensation of moving really fast or something.
So you don't have to move though?
You don't have to do anything.
You could just be in one.
You could just be in one spot if you want to. It just really depends on what your imagination wants, you know. But the idea is like they have to move because each of these little pods is a nanobot that syncs up with all of the other bots carrying people, and they build up and create objects because everyone still lives on the planet. Just the planet has been completely destroyed by climate change. So here's the scenario that plays out. All these nanopods, they get together while like a million lightning storms, you know what I mean? Like the planet is being torn apart. A million lightning storms everywhere. And we all form together nanobots to make a robot. And then we're like going to go fight some other country's robot because some other country is like doing some crazy stuff in VR. Yeah, exactly. Like imagine every country having its own nanobot driven robot made up of all the people of that country, and then the planet literally just turned into robot wars and we fought other countries' robots to assert dominance and whatever.
You know, you're into anime now, right?
Yeah.
So I was never into anime, but when I was a kid, there was an anime series, and I don't remember what it was. It was probably like Gundam or something like that, but it was basically a movie, and it was about giant mech things of this nature. And I feel like I wish I could remember what that was called, and I feel like you would enjoy it.
Yeah.
But if you could think of any anime from the 80s where they turn into like mech warriors, check it out. Because that was could have been what it was. And I remember it from when I was a little kid, but I don't remember anything other than it was like mech warrior and people were inside of it.
And then you were telling me about dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah. In this documentary. Well, okay. This documentary talked about how they can basically map any genome for any species at all. And recently I heard that they found a completely like perfectly preserved dinosaur tail, like with feathers and everything.
That's
in
crazy.
Amber, Jurassic Park style. And when I was a kid, when Jurassic Park came out, they said, this is made up technology. This could never work. But now it could. And with that fossil they found, or whatever you want to call a preserved thing, is that a fossil?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But that fossil they found, they could literally recreate that dinosaur if they wanted to.
So the idea there then is that dinosaurs survive,
like some sort of similar reptile type creature, and they would be able to inject the DNA into that embryo and be good.
So just dinosaurs like come back to life, and humans are inside of robots. So now we have dinosaurs and robots walking the planet in the future.
It's the only way we're going to be able to fight the dinosaurs is with these giant robots.
Exactly.
Damn, B.
Dinosaur robot wars.
Damn, B.
Damn, B.
Wow. The future is weird.